You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, we review the second test between Australia and the West Indies from the Adelaide Oval. It's the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast, and let's get started. Let's have a look at the match summary from the second test between Australia and the West Indies from the Adelaide Oval. Australia batted first and made 7 for 511 declared. Head top scored with 175. Thomas and Joseph took 2 wickets each for the West Indies. The West Indies in their first innings were bowled out for 214. Chanderpaul top scored with 47. Lyon took 3 wickets for Australia. Australia in their second innings finished on 6 for 199 declared. Khawaja top scored with 45. Joseph took 3 wickets for the West Indies. The West Indies needed 497 runs to win. They were bowled out for 77 in 40.5 overs. Chanderpaul top scored with 17. Boland and Nessa took 3 wickets each for Australia. Australia won by 419 runs. Travis Head was named Player of the Match. What were the key moments and key factors from this second test between Australia and the West Indies? The partnership of 297 for the 4th wicket between Head and Labuschagne to rescue Australia from 3 for 131 to post 7 for 511 declared in Australia's first innings. Australia's bowling to dismiss the West Indies for 214 in the first innings, which gave Australia a first innings lead of 297 runs. Australia's quick batting in the second innings to post 6 for 199 declare to set a target of 497 for the West Indies. Australia's bowling to dismiss the West Indies for 77 in their second innings, which guided Australia to victory by 419 runs and a 2-0 series victory. Those were the key moments and key factors from this second test at the Adelaide Oval. Let's have a look at both teams' performances in this second test at the Adelaide Oval with both bat and ball. We'll start with Australia and their batters. Warner, 21 and 28. Khawaja, 62 and 45. Labuschagne, 163 and 31. Smith, 0 and 35. Head, 175 and 38 not out. Green, 9 and 5. And Carey, 41 not out, and 8. That's how the Australian batters went about things in this second test at the Adelaide Oval against the West Indies. Australia's batting was good in this second test against the West Indies. Very clinical, a very clinical batting performance from the Australian team. The top order doing its job once again, scoring a lot of runs and putting the West Indian bowlers under pressure. As we saw in the first test in Perth, the Australian batsmen continued that here in Adelaide. Let's talk about the first innings. Australia scored 7 for 511 declared inside 137 overs. A pretty good first innings total and set them up nicely in this test match. And the West Indies were under pressure from that moment on. Australia were in a bit of trouble early on in their first innings. There were 3 for 131. The West Indies were bowling well and got Australia 3 for 131 in 42.4 overs. So Australia under a bit of pressure there. But the partnership between Travis Head and Marnus Labuschagne of 297 for the 4th wicket helped Australia out of trouble. And also the partnership of 95 for the 2nd wicket that was scored earlier before that partnership between Head and Labuschagne, between Khawaja and Labuschagne for the 2nd wicket, 95 runs, also helped Australia as well get out of trouble. Also, good contributions from Travis Head, 175, Labuschagne, 163, and Khawaja, 62. And also a very good contribution from Alex Carey down the order, 41 unbeaten. Also contributed to Australia reaching that score of 511. The second innings, Australia had a lead of 297 runs on the first innings and batted well to set a target of 497 runs for the West Indies to chase down in the second innings. The They finished on 6 for 199 declared in their second innings. Australia were in T20 mode, trying to score quickly so they can declare under lights to expose the West Indian top order, and they were able to do that. Some pretty good partnerships in the second innings for Australia. 77 for the first wicket between Khawaja and Warner, really set the tone. 58 for the third wicket between Smith and Labuschagne. Those partnerships were handy for Australia in order to set up the game for Australia, and Australia were able to cash in, score runs quickly in the second innings, declare under lights. They got 4 early wickets in the West Indies second innings under lights, and that was able to set them up going into day 4 of the Test match, and they were able to bowl the West Indies out for 77 and win by 419 runs. So nothing more to add on to that. It was, as I said, another clinical batting display, and this is what you want to see from Australia, is that you want to see them scoring runs consistently, and we've seen that throughout this series. Yes, it's against a West Indian attack that is quite underprepared, undermanned, but the Australian team has to play the 11 that's presented to them by the opposition, and they were able to cash in and make the most of these opportunities with the bat, not only in this Test match, but also throughout the series as well. Let's talk about some of the batters and how they performed. Marnus Labuschagne, he keeps scoring runs, doesn't he? Brilliant performance from Marnus, 163 off 305 balls. His discipline, his willingness to get better and improve as a batter is second to none. He's breaking many records in this Test series against the West Indies, too many to list. Good signs for Australia heading into the series with South Africa, that Marnus is scoring runs. Steve Smith was captain in this second Test match. Obviously, Pat Cummins not playing because of that injury to his quad. He missed out in the first innings, got out for a duck, but he got 35 off 36 in the second innings, trying to force the pace and really bat in T20 mode to try and get Australia quick runs. So he had a reasonable Test match. Travis Head was outstanding, scoring his first ever Test century at home at the Adelaide Oval, 175. Pretty good knock. He cashed in after getting out for 99 in Perth. He was able to get the century in the next Test and make amends. He's in good form with the bat. Good signs for Australia going into the South Africa series. He would have been disappointed to get out for 175. Obviously got run out by Cameron Green. We all know what happened there. A bit of a mix-up. That happens, but he batted well. Travis Head, good to see him in the runs. Usman Khawaja, as always, he had a reasonable Test match. 62 and 45 is not a bad Test match for him. He batted well once again. David Warner, big talking point going into the second Test. Obviously, a lot of outside pressure, outside noise. It's pretty much well documented, the reasons for that. David Warner, even though he made 21 and 28, he did look good, really, when he was at the crease. He wasn't able to go on with it. Alex Carey batted well for his 41 not out in the first innings of 54 balls. Good time spent in the middle for him. Obviously, with Alex Carey, not much opportunities with the bat in this series. Pretty much in this Test at Adelaide, it was the only time he batted for the whole series. But I thought he had a pretty good Test match. He kept well behind the stumps. Took 6 catches in the second innings. He took 2 excellent catches up to the stumps off Michael Nessa to get rid of Chase and De Silva. 2 brilliant catches. Not easy as a wicketkeeper going up to the stumps, keeping to a medium pacer or a fast bowler. It's not easy, especially when an outside edge comes. You're up close to the stumps. It does come quicker, so you have to react quicker. But there were 2 brilliant catches from Carey up close to the stumps. Brilliant piece of wicket-keeping and brilliant tactics from Australia as well. He dropped a catch, I believe that was in the first innings. But besides from that, I thought Alex Carey had a pretty good Test match. Cameron Green, a bit of a concern with Cameron Green. Didn't look at his best. He looked a bit out of sorts, especially in the first innings, 9 off 42. Then he got 5 in the second innings. Comes down to not having enough preparation or game time for Cameron Green, obviously. So let's hope Cameron Green can turn that around in the South Africa series. But besides from that, Australia did the basics well with the bat. You know, they ran well between the wickets. They rotated the strike well. They built partnerships nicely. They punished the bad balls. The top order doing the job and setting the foundation again, backing up the partnerships. So overall, it was a dominant batting performance from Australia. in this second test against the West Indies. Let's have a look at the Australian bowlers and their performance in this second test against the West Indies from Adelaide. A wicket for Green, 5 wickets for Nessa, 5 wickets for Stark, 4 wickets for Lyon, and 3 wickets for Boland. That's how the Australian bowlers went about things in the second test in Adelaide against the West Indies. Once again, Australia's bowling was top-notch. It was excellent in the second test against the West Indies in Adelaide. The first innings did well to bowl the West Indies out for 214 inside 69.2 overs, which gave Australia a first innings lead of 297 runs. The second innings was probably their best bowling performance throughout the whole entire series. They bowled well to dismiss the West Indies for 77 inside 40.5 overs. It was a masterclass of bowling. It was simply outstanding. I can't really add to that, really. It was just another dominant bowling performance from Australia. Once again, Australia did the basics well with the ball. They bowled good lines and lengths. They applied the pressure onto the West Indian batters throughout the 2 innings of this test match. They bowled dot balls to build pressure, took wickets at regular intervals, bowled dot balls and maidens to build that pressure onto the West Indian batters. They executed their plans and skills with the ball. They bowled consistent line and length and were relentless in that line and length on a consistent basis. All the Australian bowlers did their job. All the wickets were shared around. It was a relentless performance from Australia. Let's talk about some of the bowlers. Obviously, no Pat Cummins, no Josh Hazlewood. Obviously, both of them missing out due to injury. But Scott Boland and Michael Nessa came in and did a very good job. But let's talk about Mitchell Starc's performance. He bowled well, a master with the pink ball. His record with the pink ball is quite outstanding. The delivery he bowled to Jason Holder in the second innings was brilliant. You know, left arm over the wicket angle to the right-hander. He was pushing it across the right-hander and Holder. And then that delivery to get rid of him, which castled Jason Holder in the end, bowled him neck and crump, his stumps everywhere. The one that just came back in, the in-swinger, was a wonderful piece of bowling. Mitchell Starc had a pretty good test match. Good to see him bowling well. Nathan Lyon, what can we say about him? Quality spinner. There was a bit of turn, bit of assistance for him on this Adelaide surface. It was a bit dry underneath, and he was able to get the ball to turn and get wickets. He got 4 wickets for the match. 450 test wickets as well for Nathan Lyon in this test. Leading wicket taker in test matches at the Adelaide Oval as well, going past Shane Warne's previous record of 56. So he had a pretty good test match. Scott Boland, what can you say about Scott Boland? He is the people's champion. Build the man a statue. And I think the Adelaide Oval will consider building a statue in front of the Adelaide Oval for Scott Boland. Had a wonderful test match, Scott. He did it again, like he did in the Ashes last year. He replaced Pat Cummins in the 11. That was an obvious replacement. We knew that he was going to play this test. He was wicketless in the first innings. I thought he bowled well in the first innings. None for 29 from 16 overs. Just shows his accuracy and the way he bowls, building that pressure. But it was in the second innings where he got 3 for 16 from 10 overs. He took 3 wickets in 1 over. Triple wicket maiden over. In the 6th over of the West Indian second innings, he got rid of Braithwaite, caught by Carey for 3. Brooks LBW for a duck. And Blackwood caught by Green in the gully for a duck. 3 wickets in 1 over. Pretty much turned the game on its head. Scott Boland, he does it again like he did at the MCG when he got 6 for 7. But brilliant performance from Boland. Michael Nessa, he was a late replacement for Josh Hazlewood, but he came in, did his job. Did well in the first innings, got 2 wickets. The second innings, he bowled well, got 3 wickets. And he's a very good bowler, Michael Nessa. So a very good bowling performance from him. So overall, it was a dominant bowling performance from Australia. And overall, it was a dominant team performance from Australia in this second test against the West Indies. Let's have a look at the West Indies team performance with both bat and ball in this second test at the Adelaide Oval. We'll start with their batters. Braithwaite, 19-3. Chanderpaul, 47-17. Brooks, 8-0. Blackwood, 3-0. Thomas, 19-12. Holder, 0-11. De Silva, 23-15. And Chase, 34-13. That's how the West Indian batters went about things here at the Adelaide Oval against Australia with the bat. And it was a underwhelming, poor batting performance from the West Indies batters. The second innings in particular was poor. The first innings, they were bowled out for 214. That was poor, but not as bad as it was in the second innings, really, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about the first innings first of all. It was always going to be a difficult challenge for the West Indies batting against the Australian attack with the pink ball under lights at Adelaide. And we saw that throughout the two innings. They weren't going to match Australia's first innings score of 7 for 511 declared, but it was an opportunity for them to test themselves and to show the fight, resilience and resistance we saw in the first test from them in Perth. Unfortunately, that wasn't to be. They got bowled out for 214 inside 69.3 overs, conceding a first innings lead of 297. They lost wickets at regular intervals, 1 for 35, 2 for 45, 3 for 50, 4 for 90, 5 for 102, 6 for 102, 7 for 162, 8 for 170, 9 for 171, and all out for 214. Didn't build big partnerships with the bat either. 35, 10, 5, 40, 12, 0, 68, 1, 43. Only one 50-run partnership, and that was Anderson, Phillip and Joshua De Silva for the 7th wicket, which was 60. The second innings was a very poor performance. Chasing 497 runs wasn't going to happen, but for the West Indies, it was all about showing that fight and resistance and hoping to blunt the Australian attack here in Adelaide, but that didn't go to plan. Bowled out for 77, their lowest test score against Australia since 1999 when they were bowled out for 51 at Port of Spain in that test series in the Caribbean. Getting bowled out for 77 just summed up the West Indies batting in this test match, but also in the series. Nothing else to add, really. It was poor. Australia's pressure with the ball was too much for their batters to handle. The way the West Indian batters batted in this second test showed their vulnerabilities. Also, signs of fatigue after spending a lot of time in the field, then going out to bat on the same day didn't help their cause. And the West Indies just didn't do the basics well, and that's the thing throughout the whole series. They haven't done the basics well with the bat. They didn't run well between the wickets. We saw a couple of run-outs in this test match. Chanderpaul got run out. Anderson, Phillip got run out in the first innings with mix-ups. Didn't build partnerships, poor shot selection. As I mentioned before, didn't run well between the wickets, just didn't do the 1%ers right. And it was an indication that a team that has spent a long time in the field, getting towards the end of the series, a bit tired, a bit fatigued, as I mentioned, it was always going to end this way, where the West Indies were just going to have a batting collapse and get bowled out for under 100. And that's what happened in the second innings of this second test in Adelaide. So overall, it was a very poor batting performance from the West Indies in this second test against Australia at the Adelaide Oval. Let's have a look at the West Indies bowlers and their performance in this second test against Australia from the Adelaide Oval. A wicket for Braithwaite, 2 wickets for Thomas, a wicket for Holder, 2 wickets for Chase, 5 wickets for Joseph, a wicket for Phillip, and no wickets for Minley. That's how the West Indian bowlers went about things in this second test against Australia from the Adelaide Oval. Now, the West Indies bowling throughout this whole series has been poor. The second test here in Adelaide was poor again. The first innings conceding 7 for 511 declared showed that Australia batted well once again, and the West Indian bowlers bowled poorly. The West Indies, as we've seen throughout the whole series, and also in this second test, didn't do the basics well with the ball. Didn't execute their plans or skills with the ball. Didn't take wickets at regular intervals. Didn't build pressure with the ball. Didn't bowl consistent lines and lengths. Going through the motions with the ball. Didn't help with debutant Minley being injured on test debut after bowling 2 overs. The West Indies were a bowler down. Didn't help their cause in the first innings, so they really struggled in the first innings. So nothing more to add on to that, really. The second innings, they conceded a first innings lead of 297 runs on the first innings, which was a big deficit. They managed to take some wickets in Australia's second innings. They took 6 wickets, but they were just waiting for Australia to declare, and Australia did declare on 6 for 199, and Australia set 497 for the West Indies to win, which in the end the West Indies didn't chase that down, obviously, and were bowled out for 77 in their second innings. So pretty much nothing to gain from that situation for the West Indies in the second innings with the ball, really. As a bowling side, you just hope to pick up some wickets and boost some confidence going forward to your next test series, which the West Indies after this will no doubt think about. So they got some wickets. The wickets they got were freebies. Australia were looking to try and score quickly so they could declare under lights and really test the West Indian batting lineup out, which they did. So for the West Indies, they were able to pick up wickets, but they were sort of cheap wickets, freebies. As I mentioned, Australia were just playing T20 cricket, one-day cricket mode, looking to score quickly. So nothing much to add on to the West Indian second innings bowling performance. So they really struggled in this test match with the ball again. And their bowling attack in Australia just don't have the ability to be threatening or potent. And that's the problem. When you don't have anyone who can bowl pace, the only one who can bowl pace is Azari Joseph. But throughout this whole series, he hasn't bowled consistently at pace. So lacking that airspeed through the air, lacking a quality spinner as well, the West Indies bowling attack have really struggled on this tour to Australia. So overall, it was a poor bowling performance from the West Indies, and overall, it was a poor team performance from the West Indies in this second test against Australia. It was a dominant victory from Australia. 419 runs to wrap up the second test and the series 2-0. We saw brilliant performances with the bat from Australia in this test. Travis Head, 175, and Marnus Labuschagne, 163. We also saw some brilliant performances from the Australian bowling attack, in particular Scott Boland, taking 3 wickets in 1 over, repeating his MCG heroics. For the West Indies, this was a tough test match, under lights with the pink ball here in Adelaide. They were outplayed in all 3 departments of the game. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast, and like and share our Facebook page, and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Until next time, keep safe, and bye for now.